So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to my good friend Leon and my great friend Ray. There's no reason why they're not both great.
I'm only the good friend.
Yay!
Take it away, Leon.
No, since I'm only the good friend and Ray's the great friend, I'm gonna let him share.
Oh, he's gonna do that to me now.
That. He meant equally as great friend.
Wow.
And by the way, a small correction to what Marcelo said. On Friday, we eventually get up.
There's no crying in Agile, so just
go ahead, Leon.
No, after you.
You're killing me. You're killing me.
You're killing me, man. You're killing me.
Yeah, because I didn't have it open, so now I need to find it.
Now I need to open it. He counted on his teammate to open it up.
I did. Yeah, I thought that was the understanding. So now I have to find it.
You can check the your Zoom chat, Coach, and I sent you the link.
Yeah, we're gonna have to inspect and adapt.
Marcelo, what was the best beer that you drank on your vacation?
The best beer that I drank on my vacation was...
Or what place? Or beer place?
There were so many. Yeah, there is actually a World of Beer in Savannah, where I had a rum cask beer from Scotland called Innis and Gunn.
Wow, Innis and Gunn.
Innis and Gunn. INNIS and Gunn. GUNN. And it's basically an ale that was aged in a rum cask. Wow. You can't get it in Florida anymore, oddly enough. You can't get it in Florida anymore. So
just can you describe it for the audience?
Yes, I can describe it for the audience. From what I remember, it was very it didn't quite taste like you were having a rum shot, but it tasted a little cinnamony, a little mapley, and a slight bit of apple aftertaste to it, but not sweet apple, a little sour apple type of taste. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is all, like you said, this is all like barrel aged. So
yeah, barrel aged stuff. So it's being infused in there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, Savannah, great little town. Great little town. Very spooky place.
True. Very true.
Very spooky place. Here we go.
Did you go on a tour?
Yes, I did. Yep, I went actually on several tours. Please support your national monuments.
Did you go on the spooky tour?
Yes, I did.
See, I didn't go on that one. All right.
I did. Yes, I did.
So thank you, Leon and Marcelo, for the commercial break, because I needed the time to find the deck. This is the topic for tonight. We're going to start here on page 2.
You want to present? Hit the present.
What do you mean?
Do you want to hit the top present?
Oh, the button present. Hold it.
Yes. To the right. All the way to the right and up. Keep on going right. Here, up. Missed it. There you go. See if it comes up.
There we go.
If not, we can get off of it.
Moving on to the second slide.
See if we see a second slide comes up. If not, we'll just exit out of that and there we go.
There we go. It's just
there we go.
So you want to go back and just briefly want to go back one?
Okay.
So yeah. As a sort of a preamble, Ray and I were talking, and we were thinking, well, we haven't really been talking about technical practices lately, and we wanted to talk. We thought it might be good for us to share some of the ideas around technical practices, because I think, especially for me, like when I started off as an Agile baby, I was very enamored by XP, And to me, a lot of people are hearing about Scrum and Safe, but they haven't been hearing about XP. And so I wanted to talk about that more, because I think it's very important. And a lot of people from the XP community were at the first Agile gathering. So we wanted to talk a little bit about that. And then we also wanted to talk about a little bit about DevSecops also, because that's been introduced and that's been sort of acquired by Safe, or, co-opted, whatever you want to call it. And so we wanted to talk about those things too. And then what we really want to talk about is how can these things, which are maybe great on their own, how you might be able to adopt some of these to help your team become more high performing. And then, like, which ones do we adopt? Almost like, so we really want to talk about which ones do we adopt and why, what makes sense? Do we adopt them all? Do we adopt one? What do we do? So this is kind of the genesis of the conversation here. Yes, and please gently place questions in the chat, and then we'll pick them up. Thank you, Ray. Did you want to add to that, Ray? Did I help? Did I do okay with that? Okay.
Well done. Thank you. Okay. So brief definition. This is not a textbook definition as much as it's a peer-to-peer description of extreme programming, more like how it was explained to me like 20 years ago. One of the Agile software development frameworks focused on development team and its delivery of quality software. Ken Beck was the gentleman who first discussed XP. He was one of the Agile founding fathers. I got the opportunity to see the man today for about an hour as he was talking about some other stuff.
And there are really good books. You can find books on extreme programming. They might be a little older, but you can find them. And a lot of the concepts of extreme programming you can find in other methods, in other Agile methods. And so, and maybe people don't understand the background of this. So you'll be maybe surprised or delighted, or you will recognize some elements of XP and other frameworks.
True.
So Marcelo's showing. So Marcelo went to the basement and got extreme programming explained, right, with a big X.
Ooh.
And then you're going to show us who wrote it?
Does he have the first edition or the second edition?
Yep, exactly.
Which edition do you have, Marcelo?
It seems like a later one.
Second edition.
This one is the second edition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
If you go buy that today, it's about $50 for that.
No, no, it's my spare. You don't want to see the first edition I have.
Oh, okay.
But but extreme programming, started off, and then it kind of grew and got adopters.
And
you want to hit the next slide?
But before we go, just wanted to make 2 points here.
Yes.
It says development team because Ken Beck first came up with the idea 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, if I'm doing mathematics correctly. And software was a key focus. But we all know today that Agile is not necessarily about development teams. It's more about solution teams, right, guys? And it's not about software. It's about
Are you looking for people to say something, Ray?
Yes. It's about
embracing
change.
Embracing change.
Solutions.
Did he say solutions? Is that what Ray said?
I'm going to say yes.
If that's what Ray said, yes, solutions, outcomes. So please, as we talk about this, please do not think development team. Please do not think software. Think solution team. And please think outcomes or solutions as well. All right, so here we go. So again, back to XP principles, very straightforward. Importance on feedback, simplicity, incremental change, embracing change, and quality work. These engineering practices is about, as I said in the previous foil, delivering quality solutions.
So what I'd like to do is everybody type in the chat which of these elements made it into the Agile Manifesto, either in values or principles. What elements do you think of XP made it into the manifesto?
Okay, Omar says embracing change. Prasant says, and Bob say, all of them. Okay, Michael says quality work. Saba says all of them.
All right. So, you know, what's interesting about this is, imagine this, right? Imagine that team members understand the given feedback and react to it right away. Right away. Right. So that definitely can, I mean, I think that's a pretty bold statement right there. They react to it right away. And that this postpone these questionable needs, right? Simplicity. Incremental changes, you know, that small changes are better than big ones, than big bang. It's also interesting that this was, written by people in development, developers, that if a client thinks a product needs to be changed, programmers should support this decision, should support it. Where the sort of the stereotype is programmers push back on that stuff, right? Because they know best. And valuable product, quality work, right? So it's interesting how all these elements made it into the manifesto, and I'm not shocked why they made it in the manifesto, but you may not know that, because if you just look at the manifesto, it doesn't say that some of these came from XP.
So here you will see some of the common practices of XP. I would say version 2, not Ken Beck's original version, but the version that Ken Beck and Ron Jeffries came up with after revising and discussing Ken Beck's original ideas. And the reason for the 3 circles is because they're on kind of different tiers, which is not really important as the actual things themselves. Talking about a whole team, talking about planning, talking about the importance of small releases, talking about continuous integration, maintaining a sustainable pace, collective ownership for the solution. It doesn't belong to Leon, it doesn't belong to Marcelo, it belongs to all of us. We are all responsible. Coding standards for having the best quality software produced. And it doesn't need to be coding standards, it could be standards for whatever industry that you're working in. Test-driven development. The concept of I'm going to test something before I change something, so that 2 things happen. I can focus on exactly what needs to get changed and the quality aspect of testing, validation in the product that I'm producing. Refactoring. Is the product that I created within the standard that has been established for us to deliver the solution? Is it maintainable? Did I create a monster that nobody will be able to fix for me? A simple design that goes back to one of those principles on incremental design of a product, pushing out into the future that which is not needed now, and then evolving the design over time. I think one person called it in progressive elaboration of a design. And pair programming, which we heard one of the speakers, I think it was Marcelo's friend, came on and he talked about mob programming, which is a pair gone wild. So common XP practices, of which I believe some of us still practice today.
Well, I'm interested, right? So looking at all this, can people type in the chat which ones they're familiar with? Which ones, which practices or which elements of the XP practices are you familiar with? Type in the chat. Can you go back?
Oh, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to
So
do
type
that.
in the chat which practices that you are familiar with.
Okay, Diana says refactoring. Dilip says continuous integration. Michael says collective ownership. Okay.
Ray, you want to go the other way? Yeah.
Yep, hold on.
We'll go back.
For some reason, it is
Some
not being.
days Google Slides is not exactly our friend.
It's okay. What other elements are you familiar with?
Susan says continuous integration. Okay, so we've got 2 votes for continuous integration.
Yeah.
Micah said small releases. Omar pair programming. Andrea pair programming. Okay. So we're starting to see some patterns here.
I will tell you that, Michael, collective ownership was pretty radical. You know, developers own their own program. It was my program. Wasn't anybody else's. And I think that was kind of to me was kind of a radical element of XP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious, how many people still hear that today? Yeah. Right? I'm the only one that can fix it. It's mine.
Yeah.
Yep. What's also interesting about this is that you're talking about who knows what metaphor is? What is this metaphor thing? What is metaphor? Who can tell me what that is?
Oh, we've got a taker. Prasant pointed out that those are stories, Leon.
Yes, and so can you give me an example of that, or what they might be stories?
Like the user stories.
Okay. There's one
Requirements written in the form of a user stories.
Okay.
Okay. Dilip says it's sort of a prototype of some aspect. Okay. Yeah. You want to share us a little bit more about what your idea is there, Dilip?
Yeah, sure. I have seen that in the visualization, especially, we need to, demonstrate how a user would view certain drill down aspects of various data sets. So we may have to create dummy model, hierarchical model. And one leads to another, another leads to another, and each one has some more aggregation, summarization, or more details. So that's I mean, that's like old style of in Java they used to do sort of like a bottom-up programming where they create a lot of stubs and they build on it. But here it's a top-down, but they keep drilling down and create a leaf. Then again they drill down, create a leaf. Then they can go sideways or they can go straight away down.
Right.
Yep. Thank you. I mean, that a really good explanation, really good explanations here. What's interesting to me is that, how some of these elements have, gone into the mainstream, got more popular. You've heard it hopefully you've heard a lot about test-driven development or pair programming, continuous integration. But other things like metaphor I feel like have been lost a little bit. And there's so much good stuff here. And this has been thought out, and evolved, right, in such a nice way, with all these developer-focused standards. And I think that's what's kind of missing. Where I see where we talk a lot about Scrum or Safe, but we're not talking a lot about these types of technical practices and making them at the forefront. And so I think we've lost this a little bit. Yeah, storyboarding is like waterboarding, Marcelo. So,
No.
but I think when you're thinking about teams, what I see a lot of teams doing is worrying more about Scrum and not even considering technical practices, not even considering things that XP has been advocating. And so I really believe that if you work on Scrum, that's great. Let's work on Scrum. But if you're not working on the technical practices, it's a big miss. It's a big miss in terms of getting your team to be more high performing.
Yeah.
Other comments, Ray, on this?
No, well said. Well said.
Okay. We're moving on.
Okay. I think it's Nelu, right? Nelu,
Yes.
you there?
Yes.
Nelu, could you paste the Jamboard link in the chat for everyone while we explain? Okay, so what we want to do is talk about what technical engineering practices does your team practice today. When Nelu gives you the link, you will see on the first sheet the same exact question across the top. And we just want you to create a sticky. Use the yellow, because if we do the benefits, we're going to use a different color. So we'll be able to distinguish the benefits from the actual practice. So please use the yellow sticky card to again, type, what does your team practice today? And by the way, you are not limited to the technical practices that were in the previous page. You can add something else.
Can add where you, and if you don't, if you're not doing any technical practices, put that there too. That's okay.
Okay, we're gonna give you 5 minutes according to this timer here. And at the 3-minute mark, I will ask you, does anyone need more time?
You wanna go ahead and share the Jamboard?
Yep.
Yeah, we've already got a lot of folks that are already putting stuff up there. So don't wait. Don't wait. Go ahead and put up whatever your thoughts are. And if somebody already put up a sticky that says what you said, hey, they put up my sticky, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and put up whatever you got. Don't hold back.
I'll be there in a second. Guys.
All right, here we go. And we can see that people are already actively working on the Jamboard, right? Fantastic. Wow.
I like this function of mayhem. That is one of the elements of XP.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How many people are on the call?
There are 29 people here so far.
Yep. I'm seeing a lot of pair programming. I'm seeing code reviews.
There's at least one per person. Oh,
One coding standard, which is good.
thank you to whoever moved that.
Static code analysis, right? Uh-oh. Cyclomatic complexity analysis. Who can tell us what that is?
Calling me out, Leon? Is that what you're doing?
Well, you're on the bus, so
I'm on the bus.
sense.
That's true. I'm actually smack in the middle of the bus. Briefly, cyclomatic complexity is how many winding, twisty passages your code has to go through to arrive at a particular objective or outcome. Okay. In other words, how much of a rat's nest is your code?
So like a Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
Correct. Correct. It's a mathematical analysis of how much of a mess you've made for yourself.
So a lot about pair programming, a lot about code reviews, and we have so not surprising on that. And what was 3?
3. We're at the 3-minute mark.
Yep. Okay.
Got 2 minutes.
Wow.
Yep. I'm seeing some continuous integration, which is good.
That is fantastic. So I do have a question though, because the question is technical and engineering practices.
Yeah, there's some.
Are all of these technical and engineering practices, or are these human engineering practices? I don't know if that's going to derail you guys. I don't want to derail you, but I just want to make that observation.
True. I was moving those right to the right because some of these are practices. We don't want to take that away from you, but not necessarily technical.
Ooh,
Continuous integration.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what's interesting about XP is that sustainable pace. So they combined a lot there, within XP beyond technical practices, right? Because they were very concerned about the team. So
yeah, those are the ones I was trying to put down here.
Mm-hmm.
As I saw them. This would be like MVP, small releases, or cousins.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you notice? What is everybody noticing here? What's everybody noticing?
Don't all get excited at once, please.
Apparently they are excited. They're just trying to make sense of it. I think that the information is so vast.
There's a lot here.
Yeah, there's a lot here to process.
A lot here to process.
Yeah.
Yes. I like someone put a prototyping or proof of concept and follow up elaboration, right? Prototyping. All right, I think this is good.
Yep. Nice job, guys.
Thanks everyone for that. There will be more upcoming.
Switch to the other one. That one. Nope.
Okay, we're going back to the
presentation.
slide deck.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
For me, I would love to have an XP revival. Where we are having a specific. We're talking a lot more in depth about XP because there's so much content online that people just are not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the second question, again, using stickies. Again, 5 minutes. What benefits have you realized from practicing those technical practices? So we want you to go back into the Jamboard and just using a green sticky. That's why I asked
For
you to do
the second sheet.
Yeah. The second sheet?
Is it the second sheet? We're going to do the second sheet.
Is it the second sheet?
Second sheet.
We will confirm that in 1 second. I think he's right, by the way. Come on, you can do it. Open up.
We're going to do second sheet. What benefits? And so what benefits are you realizing from these technical practices that you put on the first Jamboard sheet? And then if you haven't, if you want to speculate on what, if you haven't done a technical practice, what benefits might you obtain? So the thing about practices, right, is should you do practices before you understand what value you're going to derive from them. And so I think sometimes maybe we ought to start off with the benefits, like, well, what benefits do we want to achieve, or what outcomes do we want to achieve, and then track back to what practices we may want to adopt to be able to achieve that benefit. Because sometimes what I see teams doing is saying, well, I just want to do pair programming. Let's just do it. And they start doing it. And then after a while, people are like, well, why are you doing pair programming? And they're like, well, we don't know. We're just doing it, right? So oftentimes it might be good to say, well, what are we trying to address here? And it doesn't always have to be a problem per se. It could be something we want to increase some maturity in, or just adopt. But we might be addressing a pain point or an inefficiency or a lack of maturity in an area. And so we may want to adopt this practice. So, but start with that, maybe start with the benefit or the outcome that you're trying to achieve, and then track back to a practice. What I've seen teams do sometimes is take all the practices and say, okay, we're doing them all. Like, let's pick a person to do it. So I'm seeing better quality, better focus, better cadence, happier team, happier clients. Who can tell me what the customer involvement is with XP? You can type in the chat.
Testing.
Customer testing, Prasant says. Good observation.
If you remember
And feedback, Susan, great one. Feedback.
What's the risk of having the customer test? Shouldn't we test ahead of the customer? Shouldn't we roll out to the customer? Aren't we going to show the customer like our code, you know, and all of its warts? Aren't they going to lose confidence in our code because it might have bugs in it? Yeah, real customers. Yep. That's what I would say. Just call it beta and it's all good.
Mm-hmm.
So build the right thing the right way. Happier team, resilient teams, happier clients, better focus, predictable delivery, less defects. These are all good things.
Mm-hmm. Look at that. There was some hiding underneath each other, Leon. Look at that. We've got like a veritable treasure trove of stickies hiding underneath
bugs
each other.
always hide. So there's
surprise,
bugs hiding
surprise.
everywhere. I do have a problem with Cruft. Cruft is a problem. Yep, Cruft.
Save time, save money. If I don't have to redo something, saving money.
Yes, who can tell us what Cruft is?
Well, I typed it. I can give you what it was explained to me by one of the architects I work with as most reductive form, tech debt. It's the laggardly application of new practices and sticking to old ways because it's familiar, you're used to it, or it's convenient, or you're trying to meet a deadline. Any and all that can lead to this tax that you have to pay eventually. And
tax, yes,
yeah,
tax, pound of flesh. It's not pretty. It's not.
Yep.
It is painful.
Yep. It's the tombstone your team is dragging around with it everywhere.
Oh, it's Jacob Marley.
Pay me now, pay me later.
Oh, that's right.
All right. So we would, I think we would say, look at the benefits and then track back to the practices. But certainly if you're adopting practices, understand what the benefit will be. And even better, track those results. Is the practices we're adopting resulting in the benefits that we expected? And if not, why not? And if so, let's go ahead and shout that from the rooftops. Ray, want to go back?
Yep.
And so to me, I would always ask before you adopt something, what value is it going to bring? And really, to the team, but also to the customers and clients. What value is it going to bring to them? And focusing on value that the practices will bring. It can be very fun to try on a new practice, but let's try it on with making sure that value, yes. Now, we're also going to talk about engineering practices, DevSecops. What is DevSecops?
Does anybody know what DevOps is?
It's minus sec.
That would be an
missing a
accurate
sec.
statement. If you understand DevOps, the sec or the security is the addition to the foundational DevOps theories and practices and principles.
Yep. And I think, one of the things that are missing again, so to me, XP has a lot of things that are maybe missing in the way we work. Another thing that you're not going to find in Scrum is, well, okay, so we're developing, but now we're doing manual deployments. Now, we're having to do, it takes us longer to actually get work done and get deployments and get to production, especially when we're talking about software. So this kind of evolved out of that need to be able to do things like deploy faster, to be able to automate, to be able to have, again, the developer focused, to have the developers and development team have components or capabilities that are easier for them to work and to deploy. So that's how DevOps evolved. The sec part of it evolved because people started realizing, whoa, security is involved in it, and it's kind of a third-class citizen. They shouldn't be. And we have to go through security scans, and part of our deployment process involves security. So we need to get them on the bus, because they're not on the bus, and they need to be there. And we want to think about automation for them. We want to think about how they're integrated in what we're doing. And as over the past 20 years, security has become more and more important in how we are deploying software.
So this is the typical DevOps or DevSecOps workflow, if you will. You have your front-end kind of work, or front-end in the sense of the development in the yellow, and you have your back-end production, pre-production, release, deploy, operate, monitor types of functions in gray.
Yep, and you can see here, right? Plan, code, build, test. Then we're releasing. We're going to the ops land, and release, deploy, operate, monitor. Now, for a long time, there was this kind of butting heads, right? Where almost like if you were in ops, you were protecting the organization from development, because anything that changed in production is a potential risk. So I want to make it very rigorous on our development team to deploy any changes. And we better know about it. And we better know 6 months in advance. And we don't want you to deploy every day, certainly not. Although, how many times does Amazon deploy a day? Could be a couple times a day at least, I'm thinking. And then on the developer side, they're frustrated by ops because they can't get stuff to production, can't get stuff for their clients. So you had these groups butting heads, and some really smart people like Gene Kim and other people said, time out on this. We need to work together, and we need to work together with what we're doing for the client, for the organization, for the customer, for all of us. And there's this idea, let's get away from butting heads and seeing how we can work together. Look at all these things.
And this is not a complete list. It's not an exhaustive list. It was our version of a Jamboard sheet in 1 minute or less.
Yeah, and sort of sec. Can you go back to the sec part?
Oh,
I think, I think Prashant, in this picture, security kind of wraps it. So think about it as a wrapper. That it's all part of this, right? That security is imbued in all of this. So in every step, so it sort of looks outside, but it really, to me, it wraps everything that we're doing there.
Yeah,
Yes, not an afterthought.
sec can be as early as build, because you can have a virus scan.
It should be. It should be.
You can run a virus scan as part of your build step to make sure that you don't have any vulnerabilities.
There's this idea of shift left, which is basically you're thinking security day one, even in planning. You're thinking about security day one.
I would
But why is that outside? The reason I'm asking is if you have any other non-functional requirements like user experience or accessibility or any such thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we do those kind of checks before we release something, right?
Yeah.
So why is security not one of those steps? Why is it outside?
Well, what they're saying here is that it's not just a step. It's in everything. It's in everything that we're doing here in all these steps. Exactly. Security can be in design. In fact, it should be in design, because if you don't have security as part of design, what will happen when we start building? We might have to do some refactoring. So I think that's what they were trying to show here, Prashant, is that it's included in everything that we're doing end to end, especially in the DevOps space.
Similar thinking to the word quality, which you don't see on the track, but is part of all these things.
Okay.
All right, so let's move on a little bit. Let's go to Jamboard. Yes.
Back on the bus.
Dirt sheet.
So
What DevSecops engineering practices does your team have or use? And if they don't, say they don't. If you want to put one you might like to adopt, note that in there. Maybe you're not using right now, but that you might like to adopt. Yes, Ray's talking about it's part of asking what can go wrong and how we can and be prepared for it. And it so Mike's going to be talking military next week. It's kind of like having a red team. It's kind of like having a red team or a team that is looking, saying, almost assuming it's going to go wrong, and looking at it from that point of view. So what engineering practices does your team have? That could be related to DevSecops. And again, if they don't, just put none. If there are practices there that you might want to adopt, note that in there.
Leon, isn't the red team the one who's trying to break things and trying to hack into things?
Yep, could be. Yep. It's also, they could be looking at, let's say what can go wrong, how should we be prepared for it, to actually test that out, right? To break stuff. And that's literally, if you think about what could go wrong, it's like breaking stuff. This could go wrong, right? We could miss performance. We could miss, the number of users we have. Let's test that out. So let's put the red team on that. Let's put I'll put the Jamboard link out there again for folks.
Good one, by the way.
Yes, pen tests. So, and again, right now, security is huge. We got ransomware going on. We got SolarWinds. We got everybody hacking and everybody else. So security is paramount right now, and it's one of the top jobs right now. Top growing jobs, fastest growing jobs.
Does anybody have automated monitoring of hardware or the application?
Are you talking about application insights and telemetry and logging and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Oh,
that would be a card.
Well, now.
Yeah, I think, things like monitoring oftentimes get short shrift, and you can There's so much information that you can get from that. Oh, so if you want to go to the new panel, they're up at the top there in the middle, there's these arrows. Go arrow to the right. Arrow to the right. Yep, there you go. Next frame. You're welcome. I think somebody's OCD and trying to put into a pattern, like a Purina dog chow pattern. Who's that?
I was doing that, and then I remembered the kids on the bus were all over the place, so just leave it alone. Sure, one opportunity to be freewheeling.
Okay. Did you say Free Willy?
Yes, free. Yes, I did.
I mean, that's a great movie, by the way.
Pardon?
Especially the end.
Say again?
The end of the movie.
Oh, the jump over into freedom.
You know,
Yes.
there's a sticky up in the upper right-hand corner that I'm curious about.
Which one?
It's the code scanning for known common issues, because honestly, maybe one in 10 teams that I encounter today are actually accounting for that. I mean, there are whole companies that are dedicated towards validating, because we're using a whole lot of open source, right, guys?
Yep.
And so there are entire companies that are dedicated to validate for known issues inside of different JavaScript libraries, Python, Ruby libraries, any of these open source tools that are out there. There are companies that actually will scan for issues and vulnerabilities in all these libraries, and they will sell you as a service that code scanning, that sticky. So I'm kind of curious, whoever put that out there, can you tell us a little bit about where that's coming from and how you guys are doing it? Because I really am seeing that infrequently today, and it's incredibly important.
I'd say that's more of a wish we had sort of thing. But I would say that, you see a lot of things you can do to scan for, there are tools that will check for kind of common things that you can run that are a bit more automated. There are great products out there too that, you can integrate into your build process, but, there's some things you can look for that, are more simple, that you may have seen these problems before in terms of what people are including, what are they using the right library? Are they doing input validation sort of things? Those kind of things you can integrate fairly inexpensively, not necessarily having to bring in the whole tool. Mm-hmm. And that seems to be a, kind of a common recommendation to do some of the simple things you can do, even though there are some great products out there too.
Right.
And then,
yeah, so actually Omar posted up a company, one of the companies I was actually thinking about called AppScan that does that. Another friend of ours worked for a company, Leon, that made DevOps automation tools that had that sort of stuff baked in. Mark Kilby. If you guys haven't checked out a product, company called Sonatype, check that company out, folks. Okay, yep. Like I said, Leon and I know Mark really well. So does Rick. He's effectively, I guess you could say, the godfather of Agile in Florida. Yes, Sonatype Maru, and he was their enterprise Agile coach for a number of years. Okay, so I thank you for sharing that, Ray, because that triggered the thought in my mind to share that with you. That if you guys want to benefit from that sort of automated checking and scanning, Sonatype, check it out. Not cheap, but good stuff.
Yeah, they also, just about another kind of a plug for Sonatype, they have a thing called All Day SecOps, periodic, like at least once a year, and they have a lot of great talks that you can listen to that are free. So that they're very community oriented too.
Yep. So I like a lot of this here. Vulnerability scans, pen tests, system stress tests, automated integration tests, automated regression testing. So a lot of really good stuff here. Validated repositories, security compliance, automated vulnerability scans, right? So imagine, you're doing these vulnerability scans all the time. Why don't you automate them? That's part of DevSecOps.
The one that I was hoping I would see here, which rarely do I hear anybody does, back to the original DevOps practices, automatic feedback, getting feedback from your user set as they use your application.
Mhm.
I don't
Okay.
see very many people doing that. I hear or see a lot of people doing surveys.
Right. Well, I think somebody had mentioned capturing application telemetry, and that's a really powerful way of getting that live feedback out of your application that lets you know what things are using, how they're using it, how frequently they're using it.
Right.
Yes. And let's go ahead and move on. So thank you for all this. This is really good stuff. Okay, now we have a scenario for you. Your team does not have automated testing. You are not certain that the environments work from the same code base. It is common practice to code, test, fix, integrate, test, fix. How might your team do it differently and why?
Fourth sheet.
And that is the fourth sheet.
You guys will get there before me, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Here's
For
the
those of
question.
you who stuck with us to this point, this is the fun part, because we crowdsource solutions around here.
If you're wondering the why behind the question is, if you haven't done any of these things, you may be experiencing this problem here. How could you help others get started? So the whole basis for the question is, we're not doing any of this stuff. Other people who are doing it can help us understand how we can get started. What would make most sense? So that's the why behind the question.
This is a tough question.
Sorry, don't mean to grab it.
Why don't you share?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was sharing.
Okay.
That's why I said.
Yes, impulse or nudge. I'll call it a nudge. Yeah, Maru, I would say nudge, yes.
What technical practices might you suggest to a team that's starting out, which is focused more on the workflow than they are the technical practices?
Yeah. So we got plan testing before coding. The thing about test-driven development that always I was baffled by it a little bit, in that this is something I would want to do. So I was the kid in school that would, steal the teacher's answer key and then charge students for answers to tests. That's what I would do. I made a lot of money from it. Because if you got the answer key, you got everything. So to me, test-driven development is the answer key, because if you write the answers first, then you're developing questions to those answers. So you have to adapt the questions to the answers. And amazingly, you get the right answers all the time. So with test-driven development, you don't have this issue anymore where, you know, developers and testers are arguing on whether it's a defect or works as designed. There's no argument anymore. The only argument is maybe we missed a test. So the only thing you're arguing about is, hey, maybe we need to add some tests because we forgot about this scenario. The code's always good. Today we get my code's good, and Ray goes, no, it's not. I found a defect. So, and their days go by maybe before you know if your code is good. Where you know right away, like, hey, our tests work. In fact, we've automatically ran them, and so we know they work. Boom, let's run it again. We'll show you again. So it's then it just becomes an argument over adding tests. That's it. And to me, this is just a much better development scenario, and I'm still baffled why teams aren't doing more of this. I want the answers. I want the truth. All right, so I like the ask questions on why is code test fix, integrate test fix. Can we change the order? That's a great question. The right test strategy. Competition with rewards about most secure code, right? How about code coverage? Incent better code coverage, test coverage.
I actually like the idea of testing the code of other teams for vulnerabilities, but I would also then throw into, is there something that you could do as a team to help that other team, if you have control over it, or if you have some input into it, to have that team not introduce vulnerability?
Yeah. I mean, award goes to the ops team, to the dev teams that had the least security maintenance work, right? If I was the security team, I'd be giving out gift cards to those teams where I don't have to, where I'm not losing hair is not falling out about that team, where I don't get called on a weekend.
So both these last ideas you guys mentioned, you and Marcelo, were from me, and I have a lot more where that's coming from, for the simple reason that in my experience, gamification around these aspects worked a lot better than pushing requirements or trying to make people do stuff, even though they know it's better. It's just change is so hard,
That's right, exactly, and it makes it fun, right? Imagine. So any way we can make it fun or gamification, Maru, I'm willing to try. Absolutely. Ray, I'm calling you right now.
There you got some market niche ideas there for your next startup, Leon.
Yeah.
So I have a question after these exercises, because this I got to give the two of you guys as props, because when we were first talking about this, and I just kind of was reading cursorily the conversations, I was wondering, where are they going with this? But this is really good. So my question is back to the folks that are joining us here. Okay, is there something here in the different Jamboards that we've generated that you're going to take away and go back and talk to your teams tomorrow about? And if so, what is it? I want to hear. I'm curious.
I think the idea about checking out the team's code somehow will work very well, because I don't know why, but they love that competition spirit. They all think they're the best team.
Yep.
I'm loving that, Marlon. That's great. Let us know how that goes. Is the follow-on question to that? Let us know how that goes.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else? Is anybody else drawing some insight here from this little brainstorming session for something you might want to try with one of your teams tomorrow? Don't be shy.
So I'm suggesting that instead of March Madness, we do Code Madness, and we have rankings and brackets.
There you go.
What do you think about that, Maru?
I think we're going down a really profitable path for our next venture, for our next software.
Yeah.
I honestly think if a service like that existed and it was economic for companies, I'm sure it would be a sellable product.
Yep. Okay, I think we need to move on.
Cool.
Okay. I think I got some of the last minute thoughts there.
Thank you, Ray.
You're welcome. This way, when you go back to the Jamboard, you're gonna work for me or what?
I think it's going to come up this time.
Right.
I think it's going to cooperate. See? The power of positive thinking, Ray.
All right, I wanted to share something while we're presenting this. So one of the things that people are using today is I didn't put this in there, but automated testing for acceptance criteria, given when then scenarios, using Cucumber and Gherkin. I have a Gherkin example here, basic Gherkin example, and there is no reason why you can't do automated testing. I think a lot of people get stuck into, we don't have time for automated testing. Our testers are doing too much manual testing, so they don't have time for automated testing. You'll get in this vicious cycle where you'll never get ahead. And of course, manual testing has its major problems because humans are doing it and humans are inconsistent. So let's have a machine do it. At least if it's automated, even if we're doing it wrong consistently. So that's the thing. So using Cucumber and Gherkin are easier things to do. You set up your acceptance criteria, given when then, other types of scenarios, you can do this too. It's not as hard as you think. And so these are automated testing, in my mind, are no-brainers. You should be thinking about automated unit testing. You should be thinking about automated regression testing, anything that you're doing on a regular basis. And exactly, Bob and Art did BDD talks. Think about these types of testing that you do all the time, and invest in automating them. It'll pay back dividends, not only in cost and time, but quality. And that's my TED Talk. All right, we can move on. So I wanted to share a slide on where does this all fit in. So if you think about the business process from aha to ka-ching, or concept to cash, XP is in between business and development, where sometimes there's this wall between business and development, where there's finger pointing and throwing stuff over the wall. XP will fix that. And DevSecops is in between development and operations, where again, no butting heads anymore. We're fixing development operations, so we have all flow of business process working on. That's how it all fits in for there. Does this make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's the big picture we're going for here.
Wall busters.
Ooh.
Yes. Next slide.
More like tunnel highways.
This was just a comparison between the two things. If we weren't successful on that last chart, we were going to give you ideas.
So if you think about it, XP, to me, it's a development philosophy. All these things there, are for development practices. DevSecOps is not only about practices, but it's about culture, where you have an automation mindset where the customer is a primary focus and there's a one-team mentality. Ironically, or maybe makes sense, very similar to XP. So they have all of this in common. And so that's why, to me, XP and DevSecOps has a lot of simpatico going on, a lot of synchronicity.
If we make the charts available, we will fix that little mistake on the culture. I don't think that was supposed to be indented.
Yeah, I got Cucumber and Gherkin books.
Okay.
Yes, they're really good Cucumber and Gherkin books. So now here's what we want to know is, what technical engineering practices might you adopt that you're not doing now, and why? So this is on the 5th sheet.
So now we want you to commit. You make your teams commit. Now it's about you committing. You've had the talk. What do you think you can take from the conversation and use going forward?
Yeah, Ray, let's show the blank board.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm
In other words,
going.
yeah, if you had your druthers, and you could help your team apply some of these things, what would it be?
Yeah, is security part of product?
Yeah, that's why I put it there, because I never found a real way to integrate it into specs. My degree is in applied math, operations research, but also cryptography and security. That was my main major. And whenever I try to bring it into the spec of a product, nobody listened to me because it was not relevant for the revenue. And so I try to trick my way into it by saying, well, it's like it's the equivalent of a missed earning opportunity. It's a missed security loss opportunity. But I could never get through that. So I thought I'd put it.
Yeah, it's a fight, isn't it? It's a fight. I mean, it's not going to sales. We can't sell that. It can't be a part of the product, can it? But it is absolutely part of the product. You're buying security. People are worried about security nowadays, so it's got to be part of the product. And unfortunately, security is getting. Now we can get Mark Zuckerberg's phone number. We got everything on Facebook out there. So, I mean, security is part of the product because of the vulnerabilities, the ransomware, the costs, the insurance that has to be, so there's so much. And to me, security is inextricably linked to the product. It's unfortunate that we have to constantly advocate for that. Yes. Invest in more automated testing. Yes, it's an investment. That means it has a return.
And it doesn't, and I think we may have suggested, and if we didn't, then I said corrected here. It doesn't need to be one big project. It could be small technical stories, part of, an automated testing capability parent that says we're going to do little slices, and we'll do little slices every time box. It doesn't need to be, if the organization doesn't have the time, one big project. It could just be, an evolution.
And the thing I would say is, I put in this, that consider finding a thought leader in your organization who's passionate about a particular practice, because there are people in your organization that are thinking about these technical practices, or maybe use them in another organization and have been thinking about them for years. And this is something they love to do. And if you can have somebody, give them the platform, the stage, to be able to share something that they're passionate about and can benefit the organization, that's a win-win. And they will help the organization help other people, mature that practice.
And that's where you can incentivize other people to step up by recognizing and rewarding that one person, to motivate other people to want to do similar things.
Yep. All right, we got to move on. I think we talked about some of the benefits here. Let's go ahead and get out of the Jamboard and go back to the presentation. I think we need to wrap up shortly.
All right.
So, we don't have to do that. So thinking about this talk about XP and DevSecops, how might you use these practices? We want you to think about how might you use these practices to help your team be more high performing. And so this is what we want you talking to your team about tomorrow. And I want to go back to Marcelo's question of what's the conversation that you're going to have tomorrow with your team? What are you going to be talking about? I know what I would be talking about is, I know we're talking about Scrum a lot, but how about development practices? How about technical practices? How about security? How about these things that are going to help in development specifically? And these are things that maybe we ought to be doing every sprint, that we ought to be investing in every sprint, that we ought to be allocating time for each sprint instead of adding feature after feature after feature after feature, right?
How are we going to build a library management system, which allows us at the beginning of the time box to create a branch that we build and we integrate into on a daily basis, use automated testing to validate it, and do things like that to remove some of the manual work that exists today, and to increase the predictability that you're not introducing defects because you're integrating more than once a month or once a time box, and increasing the quality.
Yep. Okay, Ray, we have to take a picture.
It's that time again, everybody.
I want to add on one note. There are some of you who will not think of this. There's just human nature. So I want you to walk away understanding something that I learned today, that I knew today, but I learned today. And it's from this infinity ring. We spend a lot of time over here. We don't spend a lot of time over here.
Mm-hmm.
Only a few people, and I'm going to say about 5, kind of were excited at the end. There's about 20 of us here. This here is part of the adoption methodology. It's nice to do this, but you got to spend some time here, which is where we spend a little time. Okay? So for some of you who are thinking, thank you very much for the information, I'm moving on with my life. Hey, we need to spend more time here.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's
Right now, the
awesome.
picture and everything else, and I'm going to stop sharing.